All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order for Tuesday, August 2nd at 6 p.m. Is there a roll call, please?
Sexton Duranian present.
Teresa Moss present.
And Veronica Cal present. Please join me for the voting in progress. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I'd like to announce that I'm sorry, that's me.
Click on the top one from you. So you have to do is new keyboard. Yeah.
What I do. There we go. I do it. Right, roll. Thank you. I apologize. All right, I'd like to announce that the meeting is being recorded and it will be posted after the fact on the town YouTube channel. It is also live on Channel 9. Chairman's additions or deletions? I have none. Does anybody, I know, none. Does anybody else have anything? Chaz, Teresa, whatever.
I have none.
I did have one, but I want to wait till the next meeting, so I'll give it to you. Right, yeah.
Okay, all right.
So I'll give it to you for the 23rd.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. No additions or deletions. Public comments. Is there anybody here or on the Zoom that would like to make a public comment?
I see nothing in the fields.
Okay. Seeing nothing, we're moving on to 1.6. Review and approve the meeting minutes for 4/27/2022, and I apologize, I just got those done late last night. but they are finished, so we can either move them to the next meeting, or we can, if you guys had they were draft up till the last 3 hours of the meeting where we went over the budget and the ATM. This was after the override sale process. It was that meeting. So it just took a little while to get those last 3 hours done. So anyway, I did find one thing. I think I dropped the 2 at the very end. It says 7/13/202, and it should be 2022. So that's.
I did read those, and that's the only one.
And I should change the submitted date. The 13th was when I submitted the first draft. So I should change that to 8/2.
Outside of that, I'm good with them.
How about you, Teresa? Did that look okay?
Yeah.
All right, so is there a motion?
I make a motion that we review and approve the meetings for 4/27/2022 with the minor changes we discussed.
A second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Teresa was yes. I was told I do not have to abstain because I wasn't there. As long as I trust that you put them correctly. Oh, it was okay.
Yeah, I think the first.
But in the past, I didn't have to abstain.
Right.
Just Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Cal. Thank you. 6:05, we have a public hearing for placement of the poles on North End Road. So I guess, is there some sort of... Screen, should I give you this, or do you want me to be writing this? Sorry. Please feel free to come up to me. Let me just talk to Sabrina for a minute.
All right. I'll introduce myself. I'm John Kimball. I'm representing Unitil.
Okay. Hi, John. Welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, do you want me to write that?
No.
Okay. Okay, fine. Thank you.
Can you give us your address too, just for the record?
I don't live in Townsend. I live in Milford, New Hampshire.
Okay. We won't have that against you.
All right, so I guess what, do you want to have a seat at the table with us, or are you good with standing?
No, I'll have a seat at the table with you.
Whatever you're comfortable with.
I'm comfortable either way, whatever makes you more
And you're
comfortable.
right in front of the owl, which means it'll pick you up very well.
Perfect.
So just to look through here, this is a public hearing, so should we read the notice of the public hearing? So let's start with that. Teresa, you're the clerk. Do you need a copy of the notice, or can you?
Yeah, I thought I had it pulled up, but I don't, so thank you. Okay, this is a legal notice from the town of Townsend regarding a public hearing. The selectmen will conduct a public hearing Tuesday, August 2nd, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the selectmen meeting chambers, 272 Main Street, Townsend. The alternate public access through Zoom. Okay. The purpose of the hearing is to consider a petition of Unitil Fitchburg and Gas and Electric Light Company, a company incorporated under the laws of the Commonwealth for the transmission of electricity for lighting, heating, and power, respectively ask permission to construct and use a line for such transmission, which the poles and other fixtures necessarily to sustain and protect its wire upon or along a public way in said town as follows. North End Road, install 2 new poles for 237 North End Road, Townsend. Proposed pole number 59, approximately 2902 north of Wall Street and approximately 313 degrees south of New Hampshire state line. Proposed pole number 60, approximately 3,052 degrees north of Wall Street and approximately 163 degrees south of the state line. For more information, you can see the attached sketch plan number 606 Lima. And to the end of the Honorable Board is hereby requested after due notice and public hearing as provided by law to grant the petitioner and his successors and assign a location for such lines agreeable to the provisions of Chapter 166 of the general laws and all acts in amendment thereof. Also for permission to place and maintain underground laterals and cables and wires in the above and intersection public ways for the purpose of making connection with poles in buildings as each of said petitioner may desire for distribution purposes. It is suggested that the poles be located substantially as shown on the plan field here within marked Fitchburg Gas and Electric Company proposed pole location in Townsend Plan number 606 Lima, dated 7/5/2022. All citizens are encouraged to present verbal and written comments prior to or during the hearing. Signed, Veronica Kill, Chaz Sexton Duranian, and Teresa A. Morse.
So did we circulate a sign sheet for anybody that might be here for the hearing?
I think that anybody who might be in the hearing, we can record their name, or they stand up, they can just give their name and address.
Okay, all right. And I guess the next question is were abutters notified? Yeah. Yes, and did we get return receipt cards?
It wasn't necessary to do that.
It wasn't necessary to do that, the polls, okay. I know that in the planning board and conservation, it's necessary.
Yes, we followed the required statutes for the poll location.
Okay, all right. Thank you. So I guess the first thing would be for you to present what you're going to be doing.
Okay.
And then anybody that wants to speak in favor or opposed to it could do that. And then.
Okay, so Unitil is looking to set 2 poles on Townsend property to extend for a customer that is building a house for 237 North End Road. The pole locations were chosen to stay straight line and then across the street, that way to avoid a very massive, beautiful oak that's on North End Road. That way didn't have to get removed.
A beautiful what?
Oak tree.
Oak.
They're very large.
All right.
But yeah, it's 2 poles, and then we're going to cross the street with that one will be a private property, and then he has desired to go underground after that.
All right. So on this, one of them is across North End Road, correct?
Correct.
And that's one that's 163 feet. So that's on the other side from the
Yeah,
drive.
so if you're going towards New Hampshire, it would be on your left-hand side of the road.
Okay. And then the other one is on the same side.
The same side as the
Make sure
existing.
that,
Correct.
okay. All right. Yeah, this driveway is right next to the stone wall that runs along.
Correct,
Hampshire State
yes.
Line. I know exactly where this is. I've been watching the development of the drive. So, okay. And Jimmy Smith, the highway superintendent, has a note in here.
Would you like
So
to read them?
you met with him?
No, the homeowner has.
Yeah.
He did submit a comment.
Did I read the comment into the record? So this is a request for comment from the highway department. And I met with this was, I don't know when this was, it says, please return by July 29th. So I'm assuming it's before then.
7/26/22.
All right, thank you. I met with the resident at 237 North End Road location. After reviewing the proposed pole locations, I see no issues. The resident and myself agree to place the poles as far off the edge of the pavement as possible. By placing the poles in the locations provided, it prevents disturbing the stone wall as well as many trees. So I guess my question is, are the wires overhead then till you get to the other side? Where do they go on? Does the road have to be cut up?
No, absolutely not.
Um,
So the 2 poles, the 59 and 60, those are on Townsend property. And then right next to his driveway, there's going to be a private property pole. And then it's going to go underground from there.
Oh, okay. All right. Because I saw the dark line. You can probably see it on
Yeah.
It goes from 6 feet to 313 feet. That dark line. I thought, okay, is that the cut in the road?
No, ma'am.
So, okay. All right. Thank you. Is there anything else we should know?
Not really. I mean, no, not that I can think of.
So is there any one here that would like to speak?
Oh, public first.
I was going to look through the public first. Yeah. Anyone in the room to speak either for or against? How about in the Zoom audience? I don't see anyone there.
I see no hands. Yeah.
So Teresa, go ahead with your comment.
I need trying to get more knowledgeable. So when these 2 poles are installed and then the choice is made to go underground to the home, I assume that's much more expensive.
The underground, yes.
Yeah. Is the cost for all 3 components of this absorbed by everybody in Townsend, or does that portion that's underground absorbed just by the family?
All of the financial burden is on the customer.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
I've said what I've needed to say. All right. So Eric, anything to add?
No, I just don't think that it's a brand new construction. They need to have electricity. It's reasonable to work with.
We need housing, so.
Wow. Okay. All right. So our next step then is to vote to approve the placement of the poles as specified in your
The petition.
petition. So let me do a sign here so I'm not going to. So when we make the Do we just need to make the motion to approve the polls as stated in the
It stays in the
petition?
petition, yes, because we didn't make any changes. There's no changes that were requested. So.
All right, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we install 2 poles on North End Road for 237 North End Road as stated in the petition.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? I guess we should we do roll calls? We don't have to do that.
For public hearing, roll call is probably appropriate for this because it's a use of town land.
Okay, so Teresa, how do you vote?
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
John Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kennedy. All right, and it looks like we all 3 need to sign several copies of this. So can we do that right now?
We can do it now. There's another part of this process that has to go through the clerk's office. So we're not quite done.
Okay, but our part is done.
But your part is done once you do the sign. Yes.
Okay, so.
And I did just receive the statement today for the abutters cost. Am I able to pay cash for that today, or can I do a check on a future date?
That's fine.
A check would.
Okay, so
I mean, if you give me cash, I can turn in the turnover as well.
yeah, because I have cash. I wasn't able to obtain a check today.
Yeah, I can take that too.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's okay.
No, not a problem. So we will sign these at the end of the meeting then?
I think that makes
And then we
sense.
can give them to Sabrina and she'll
We'll
walk
look
them
at-
through the next part of that.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, Tim.
I'm not going to put them.
It's 2 things.
Pardon me?
It's 2 things.
What was the other thing? Oh, what was it?
John, the card.
The card.
Oh, yes,
Yep.
yes, yes. That's the other one.
I have that written down, so if you wanted to.
Thank you. All right, we'll put those there. All right. Our next, we do have a meeting with Ross Perry regarding energy aggregation, but that's not until 6:30. Can we go on with appointments?
I think we should try to do a couple of things that we can get them done before.
Okay. All right. So we're moving on to 3.1, the appointments of personnel. So our next is to appoint the election workers. As stated in the request from the town clerk. So is there a motion?
Madam Chair, do we want to do all at once, or how do we want to do it?
Yeah, I think,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think we should do this the way we did the police fire, which is move to appoint the election workers as listed in the agenda.
Okay, so I make a motion that we move to appoint the election workers as listed in the agenda, wardens, deputy warden, and clerk.
Should we say for a term through August 14th, 2023? That's what's in the email.
In the email, yeah.
August 14th is
Yeah.
And there's more people on it, so.
Sorry, August 14th, 2023.
Okay, let me redo the motion. I'll make a motion that we appoint the election workers as listed in the agenda to a period to August 14th, 2023.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Teresa Moore
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
and Veronica Calvin. 3.2 is to appoint Ann Russ as a substitute van driver for the Council on Aging. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we appoint Ann Russ as a substitute van driver for the Council on Aging.
Second,
Any further discussion?
we received all the paperwork. Thank you, Karen, for being fastidious with your paperwork as usual.
So, are we ready to vote? Teresa,
Teresa Amos, yes.
Chad Sexton Iranian, yes.
and Veronica Toya. And 3.3 is to appoint Dawn Hayes as a finance committee representative for the town properties committee. So is there a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we appoint Don Hayes, Director of Finance Committee, as a representative for the Townsend Property Committee.
Second that.
Any further discussion?
Is that for a year or is that for?
Usually it's a year.
Okay.
Do we want to add that to the motion?
It says for the fiscal year 2023, so I imagine that would be
Yeah, through the end
of June.
Oh, okay.
to when appointments are made next time.
Yeah.
We just missed this. They just came in on June 30th, and when we were doing all our, myriad appointments, we just didn't get this one in there, and I didn't put it on the July agenda. So. All right. Any further discussion? So how do you vote, Teresa?
Teresa Amos, yes.
Chad Sexton Iranian, yes.
And Veronica. That's it for appointments. Moving on to meeting business. This is the referral for 4.1, the referral for Best Friends Vet Hospital on 22 Main Street. This is just one of the internal referrals, and this is for moving, creating a veterinary hospital in the Outlying Commercial District. It's a house that was used as a home that is now going to be changed to a business. But it was a house that was not in the residential area, it was in the Outlying Commercial. So it looks like she's going to be altering the structure. The driveway will be around the back. She's going to widen the driveway for in and out that are there. And there will be, I believe, 5 parking spots in back of that building. Yes.
I just wanted to let the board know this is the matter that the board contemplated. We had some enforcement issues with, and the goal of the enforcement was to have her file what you see in front of you, which is the application. So, should tie those things together.
The public hearing for this is on Monday, August 22nd at 6:45 p.m. So it's before our next meeting isn't until August 23rd, which is why we're looking at this today. And they're requesting comments from the Board of Selectmen.
Would you entertain me asking the town administrator a couple questions? Thank you.
Should I be under oath?
Well, you and I have discussed the situation when something comes up from planning board. Veronica and I take a big deep breath because of our experience on the planning board. But my question is, when a referral comes to the Board of Selectmen like this, would it be appropriate or not appropriate for me to basically voice the same concerns I would if I was a planning board member? Is that the purpose of a referral?
I think the goal of referrals to different boards is for them to speak on topics within their purview. Mm-hmm. So a referral to the water department would be: are there water issues that you can look at with respect to this? If they referred it to the highway department, they're supposed to look at it for highway issues. The Board of Selectmen has you have a broader kind of purview than anybody else that's getting a referral, because you oversee the entirety of the town. I think, speaking about your general concerns, you're also a resident, so your general concerns, I think it's probably appropriate because you have the ability to, again, speak for the entirety of the town, and you're looking at it on a kind of a global.
Okay, and the fact that it was brought in front of us before for other issues, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it's as long as you're mindful of not trying to instruct the planning board to do something, because since they are their own body with they have the jurisdiction to do it, and just say what your thoughts are. I don't think there's any problem with that.
Okay. Teresa, any comments that you want to add? And then I'll have my comment.
Well, I haven't added my comment yet. I just had questions.
Yeah, I mean, there are some concerns that I have, but very general, just having to do with housing issues. I know the golden apple is if it could be residential and business. I know we're trying to get to that, and this is taking residential and turning it into business, but I would rely on the opinion of the planning board. So.
Chad?
I guess my major issues is that I feel that any fines or assessment that have been levied on past violations need to be paid in full on the property. I believe they should be paid in full. And if not, then I question whether or not this should be granted. I also have a concern about I know widening the driveway also is a curb cut to 119, and that has some state regulations involved in it as well. And I would be concerned about that.
The property, I apologize for interrupting. The property owner was referred to Mass DOT and to go through that process.
That process as well, because that would be, and we just are have paved that
right.
portion of it. So I'm just
now.
Yes. So I'm concerned about.
Yes, I'm sure Mass DOT is going to provide comments about that specifically and their concerns about that. Because we did tell the property owner.
We had to jump through hoops to get that going. So, and then my other concern would be a stormwater management plan because of the driveway. The way the driveway is situated, it's a hand drawn, and I'd be concerned about drainage from that property into the neighboring two properties on either side of it.
Stormwater management, that was the purview of the planning board.
Right. So, but I understand that, but I'm just saying that would.
So, okay.
Madam Chair, I don't know if they're taking anything from the floor, but there is something from the floor.
Okay, let me get it back before
I believe that the three of us were sitting on that board that night when the property was okay.
It wasn't this property, all right? The property that was okay is the White House across the street next to the preschool. And you are correct. We did approve, and yes, Geraldine, Chad, and I were all on the planning board when we approved that. And it was to have the business downstairs and a residence upstairs. Mm-hmm. But that triggers other things that were apparently prohibitive. I don't know what the status is.
She made the determination to not go forward with that.
Yeah, they had to sprinkle the property because it was residence. So
it was the sprinkler requirement that
yes,
I think terminated that.
Did she have the choice to do it or not? Did she actually decide not to do it?
But I believe she still owns that building.
She does.
Yeah, yes. But she has purchased a building kind of across the street from it. It's one of the little
next
houses.
to the McDonald's and the
pizza place.
Little yellow.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little yellow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what she's purchased, and that's what she's going to make a vet hospital and only a vet hospital. And my thought on it is it's a legitimate use in the outlying commercial district. Mm-hmm. It's a business, and she did try to do the thing, but it didn't work.
Okay, I didn't have that.
So anyway, so I support this, but I would want her to get all the permits that are required. Mm-hmm. And
I'd like the previous stuff cleaned up first.
I think that's the purview of the planning board, that right?
The building department involved,
yeah.
The fines are not the purview of the planning board. They're issued by the building commissioner.
The building commissioner. Right. So as long as all of that is taken care of, yeah. I don't see any deterrent, any reason that I would say, oh, this is not something I would want to see. It is something that I think we would
I
encourage.
agree. I don't have a problem with it, but again, because of the way in which the process kind of went along, I'd want to make sure that we are all square before anything gets approved.
So do we know what the status is on that?
I do know.
Okay. So how do we word our comments? We trust the building department and the planning board to take care of any prior
Any outstanding fines or violations.
I'm writing this, so I might have to get them, but that's we trust the planning board and building department to resolve any outstanding
Fines or violations.
And can I write, we support this use in the outlying commercial district?
I do.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
And do we all three sign, or do I Christoph sign on that?
That's right, the chair.
Just my signature carries in
I would agree.
So it is 6:33, and we have a meeting with both Terry and John for John O'Rourke for energy aggregation. So do you guys want to come up here, or do you want to stay back there?
It's okay with us. It's okay with you.
It's okay with us. I guess I want to see, do we have anyone from the Energy Committee on? And I do see Ron. Are you there twice?
Ron's on mute.
Ron, you're muted. Can you unmute?
Michael Brown is also in.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's two of us are here.
Okay. All right. So we don't have to open a meeting or anything like that because we have two people. All right.
I do ask, if they're too far away and you can't hear them, can you please let us know, Mike? And we'll move them closer to the microphone. Thank you.
Did you hear that, Michael?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks. All right. So at this point, I guess, Ross and John, I'll turn it over to you guys and we'll go from there.
So first of all, I want to say thank you for having us back tonight. It was fun for me to come back to Townsend. It's also interesting to be sitting on this side of the table, not that side of the table. So, with me is John O'Rourke with Good Energy. I worked with John starting back in 2014 when we started the municipal aggregation. I had brown hair at the time. I had more hair. We worked on the largest single aggregation in Massachusetts, involved 24 communities, all in the southeast region. But Good Energy was the consultant that group chose then as having the experience, the horsepower, and the knowledge to pull together an energy aggregation. So I'm working with John at this stage. We'll talk about where we go with the next step at the end of this. There's two pieces of aggregation. Municipal aggregation is a term that we use when we talk about combining residential power into one group. Building aggregation is something the Energy Committee had been working on last May, or this year ago May, which would be to combine all of the towns and municipal entities. So town hall, library, senior center, fire stations, police stations, water department, to combine them as an entity and go out to bid. So we're calling that sort of building consolidation project, and that we can work on, but they're really separate from the residential aggregation. I think they can move ahead in parallel, but they're sort of a separate process. So we've got a few slides to walk you through tonight. If I can share presentation.
Artie, could you give, okay.
Thank you, Harley. Let's see if we get it. So municipal aggregation is something that the state allowed several years ago when they passed Mass General Law, Chapter 164, Section 134A. And that basically says the town can vote through a town meeting to authorize the selectmen to go out to bid for all residential power requirements. It's done as a opt-out, which means if the town meeting votes to authorize this, all the residential power contracts are automatically in the program. This is a lot more efficient than waiting for people to sign up, because they will, if you send things home to people sign up, 75% of the public will just ignore them and throw them away. Some won't know what they are. So the law was set so that everybody is in. It has the option, though, opt out. And part of the process that our consultant, whether it be Good Energy or someone else, would be to provide the web access to opt out, to provide the flyers and the postcards to opt out. So residents will be given a chance to opt out. But the assumption is everybody starts with it in the program. If they opt out, there's no penalty. And this is a significant benefit for the town because there are a lot of power brokers out there who are advertising, oh, join us and we'll save you $300 in your power bill. And sounds good. Until they find out that savings was only for the first month, and then they try to get out. And we've heard horror stories of residents being told they have to pay dearly to get out of these programs. So if the town offers it, you're offering the residents a safe program to participate in. I think that itself is a benefit. The primary goal of this program will be to offer competitive electricity choices. Now, there's two major parts of the electric bills. There's the cost of the generation, it's where the power is generated, where it comes from, and there's the distribution costs. That's the lines and the poles that are part of the bill, and that doesn't change. That power will still be provided by Unitil. Will still be their poles, their wires. But the piece of the bill that comes from the generation is what this aggregation could help pick. Another advantage is they go out for longer term bids. It depends upon the market, but traditionally, Good Energy has been doing 3-year purchases. And what that means is the bill doesn't spike in December when Unitil comes out with their winter bid. It also means it may not increase dramatically when Unitil comes out with a summer bill, but it does allow people to budget, so they're getting the same electrical rate for 36 months, 24 and 36 months. They won't be seeing up and down. There's the potential for savings. I mean, we're doing this in order to save residents money. I have to be very careful to be correct. I mean, we can't guarantee anything, but when we do get to the point of going out to bid, if the bid is not favorable, the bid is rejected. So there's a very good chance that if we get as far along as to do a bid, I will be opting for money that's less expensive than the current ones. But we can't guarantee that. There's also the option to use more renewable energy or green energy than the state requires. Right now, I believe the state requires everybody to use 20% of the energy must be green. So Unitil is buying 20% of their energy from renewable or green sources. That percentage is going to go up 2 to 3% every year. That happens because of the state mandates. This group, town could decide they want to have a higher percentage of green energy. Don't have to decide that now, and you probably won't have to decide it until we can show you the price for regular energy is this and the price for green energy is this. You can decide whether that differential is worth doing. But the aggregation process will allow the town to have some say in how much green energy they use. What changes when you do municipal aggregation? It's just, as I said, the supply charges. Distribution charges will be the same. The vendor or the generator is selected by the select board through a bidding process. And when we did this in the Southeast region, my understanding is you have 1 hour to accept a bid. Some of our purchasing we have like 30 days. Electrical contracts have to be accepted in an hour. When we did this with 24 communities, it was fun because Good Energy rented a hotel room and had representatives from all 24 communities there. I had previously established that one representative from each town would be authorized to vote for that town. If we get as far with that here, you could do that at a select board meeting one afternoon when the bids come in. You could do that. We could authorize one of you to do that. But anyways, it's a final decision made by the select. Unitil and in our region, it was Eversource and National Grid should be neutral on this process because they don't generate the electricity. They just distribute it. It really doesn't matter to them whose electricity they're using. It'll show up differently on the bill, but they will provide the electricity just as they had before. If there's service issues, people will still call Unitil and should get the same service because, again, they don't care where it's generated from. So that's basically how the process works. John's going to talk some more about what Good Energy has been doing.
Thank you, Ross. Well, thank you again, Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Town Administrator, for allowing me to speak to you tonight on community electricity aggregation. I want to tell you a little about Good Energy. We are a national company. We're involved in all of the states that have municipal aggregation. Here in Massachusetts, we have 57 Massachusetts clients, 45 of which are active programs, 12 of which are in the process of being approved. As Ross mentioned, when we got together with Ross for his survey group down in the Southeast, we essentially formed the largest aggregation group in Massachusetts. It has since become the largest aggregation group of its kind in the country. And that had a lot to do with Ross's hard work on that aggregation and the way it was combined. On that next slide, you'll see the characters on our Massachusetts team. Philip Carr, Stefano Loretto, myself, and Patrick Roche. Essentially, if you choose Good Energy, you'll be seeing me most of the time. And essentially, our customer-facing team has a staff backing it up of 40 professional, analytical, research, customer service, and administrative personnel. So there are plenty of people in the background helping the four of us. We also have working relationships with Green Energy Consumers Alliance and Sustainable Energy Advantage for renewable energy strategic planning, market analysis, and procurement. Most of the time we get our renewable energy certificates from Green Energy Consumers Alliance. They are considered the gold standard here in Massachusetts for procurement of renewable energy. That next graph is just a comparison of the group that Ross spoke about that started out as the survey group and is now called the Mass CDA Aggregation Group. You can see on that chart how the comparison in the green line, the rates of the aggregation as compared to the rates on this particular chart of National Grid. You can see how it worked out very well over these past 6 years for that aggregation. This next chart is a chart in comparison with the Eversource rates. And some of those towns in that aggregation were in the National Grid zone, some were in the Eversource zone. And you can see it's been very successful in both National Grid and Eversource as far as rate comparison is concerned. Always have to say that future savings are not guaranteed. In this next chart, we did a hypothetical comparison with the utility. So we're talking about two different markets as opposed to the rates that we got in the eastern Massachusetts area for Eversource and National Grid. So essentially, we wanted to put this together just to show you that comparison, but again, it's a hypothetical comparison. This next slide gives you an idea of what the consultant does for aggregation. We start out, we have, again, if you want to engage us, the town meeting vote is where it starts. Your residents vote to move this forward. And again, right now in Massachusetts, you have about 170 municipalities that have an approved aggregation plan. So it's not like you would be alone here. We developed the aggregation plan with your guidance and certainly with the guidance of the Department of Public Utilities and the Department of Energy Resources. We can't do anything without their approvals. So essentially, this is where it will. Next part of the process is review and approval. We conduct a public review period for the residents to review the plan, to make comments, to ask questions. All of those questions and comments become part of the plan that's submitted to the public utilities. The first thing that we do, we submit it to the Department of Energy Resources. They're the first in the line, the regulatory chain. Their lawyers look at the plan, they review the plan, they give the town what's known as a consultation letter, which basically says, yes, we reviewed the documents, they are in accordance with the law, and now you have permission to submit the plan to the Department of Public Utilities. The Department of Public Utilities is the regulatory body that approves the plan. Lately, they go through, again, a very detailed and comprehensive process with the plan, and they approve that plan. The next part of this, you have, we go through the regulatory process. There may be some requests for more information and documentation. We take care of that with the Department of Public Utilities. We obtain a final approval. Once that final approval is done, we go to an outreach and launch stage where we conduct significant outreach with the public. and we conduct a competitive bid for the electricity. The municipality awards that bid, and essentially what can happen on bid day, there'll be meetings leading up to bid day, so that as Ross said, on bid day, there's only an hour to approve the contract because of the volatility of the electricity industry. We normally get 3 national bidders for municipalities. We get the bids in normally at 12 o'clock. We review the bids with either the board or a designee of the board. Many times that's the town administrator. Sometimes it's an energy manager if the town has an energy manager. And essentially, the board gives their designee certain criteria. If it's within this range, approve. If it's not within that range, don't approve. Normally, as consultants, we're not going to bring bids to you unless we think those bids are going to be good. We're going to hold off on the bid, okay? Because we're a national company and we have a large commercial and industrial clientele as well as the aggregation business, we have our people in the market every day looking at the market. So essentially, we have a situation where we have knowledge of the market every day, and we have professionals that say, hey, this is a good time to bid, this is not a good time to bid, okay? Because what our objective is to get you the best bid we can get you. We do multiple outreach, multiple channels through many sources, websites, we do printed material, we do press releases, we do interviews with your television station, all of which is to give your residents the information they need to make a decision to either join the program or to opt out of the program.
John, I just interject here. They also can produce this information in multiple languages. So if there's Portuguese, Spanish, other languages that are enough to be recognized in this area, Good Energy has the horsepower to generate multilingual material. And when we were doing the one in the Southeast region, of course, it covered Fall River and Bedford, they covered 7 languages. It takes a lot of sort of resources to be able to do all of the print media, all your video media, all of your mailing information in the languages that are relevant to your residents.
Yeah, very, very important point for us. Thank you. And again, once the bid is accepted and the program launches, and again, Ross mentioned, lately our contracts have been mostly 30 to 36 months. That's been the sweet spot for contracts. We monitor the program. We get monthly information that the town can also access. That next slide is just an example of some of the product mix. You have a default product. That is basically the one that is the standard. Many towns start off with no additional green energy in that product just to get the program going, and then on the renewal, they may add some green energy to it. And essentially, there's 2 optional products. There's a basic which meets the standard requirements of the state. And for those who are looking for 100% green, we put in a 100% green product. It's you purchase Massachusetts Class 1 renewable energy certificates. On that next slide, again, one of the most important parts of these programs is public outreach and education. We make sure that we're communicating very clearly to residents. And again, we've done this. We have, aside from Massachusetts, we have a couple of hundred aggregations in other states. We have become an expert at outreach and education, making sure we reach all the populations in your municipality that want to become part of this program. We are particularly interested in reaching the seniors because essentially the seniors are the main objective to some of these retail marketers of electricity, and they can fall victim to some very unscrupulous marketers. So we like to do at least 2 or 3 presentations at the senior center to make sure the seniors understand what is happening. We develop a website that has all the information on it. We do posts and messaging and links on social media, which has become very popular. Essentially, we have phone numbers that can be called, again, to ask questions. Our cards have our cell phone numbers on it. We can be reached at any time for questions. We have a data portal that the clients have access to where you can look at real-time data each month so that you can see how the program is doing. This next slide is an example of the data portal and the different features of that portal and information that you have access to. This next slide, this is an interesting slide. This is the Unitil service area. And there are 4 municipalities in the service area. You'll notice that Ashby and Lunenburg, they have already aggregated with Colonial Power, and they have a combined household number of about 5,500 households. Good Energy, our client is Fitchburg. Fitchburg has 15,000 households. And of course, you have Townsend in there with about 3,600 households. Essentially, one of the main reasons to aggregate is to form the largest aggregation. Okay, so looking at this chart, certainly it would be more advantageous for Townsend to aggregate with Fitchburg than with the other 2 smaller communities. And according to Unitil, based on all residential and commercial accounts, Fitchburg has about 77% of the basic service load. So again, it would be most advantageous for Townsend to group with Fitchburg. Good Energy is the consultant. So, all right, next steps. Ross, you want to go through the next step?
Next steps is really to pick the consultant that the town wants to work with. I highly recommend Good Energy because of my experience with them and the work they've done in the past, and the fact they've got the resources to support this type of endeavor. But it simply is the board's prerogative to say, let's go off and interview someone else. Colonial Power is the only other viable alternative in Massachusetts. And if you so tell me, then I will get a hold of them and I'll bring them back to the interview. Per procurement law, you do not have to go out and bid for energy consultants. That's under Mass General Law 30B, Section 1, paragraph 32. Energy consultants are exempt from this. So you could ask them to come in and do a presentation and see, like at that point, or we can move ahead with Good Energy. That's the board's decision. You make that decision tonight or whatever you want. But once you picked your consultant, then we start the public outreach and we start the preparing for town meeting. One presumably coming in the fall. You could have information ready for a town meeting vote in the fall. There's simply one for town meeting vote. After town meeting votes, then your consultant starts. The board is tasked of submitting all the paperwork to the Department of Energy and to the computer. And all those steps that John talked about, that's what they do. What the town does is decide on the consultant, get a town meeting vote. So all the work to get the plan together and approved by the state, it's all done by your consultant. I think that there's left up to the town to do, talk about it. So you're hiring a company that's based on, knows how to do that and has the process.
One of the things that Ross mentioned to me was the fact that the Energy Committee was primarily concerned with the bids for municipal buildings, municipal accounts. The language in the law is somewhat confusing because the language in the law talks about municipal aggregation, and a lot of people think, oh, we're going to aggregate our town accounts. Okay. We have called it community electricity aggregation to kind of separate it from that and to make sure that it's the residential part and business part for residents and businesses. We have done for our community electricity aggregation clients, we have done their municipal accounts as well. So that's something we can easily do. I think mostly procurement. Okay. And again, your Energy Committee was concerned about that. So I just wanted to define between those two things.
So there's really two programs. The residential side we've been mostly talking about, and then the consolidated town buildings. And they can be done in parallel. I'm capable of doing both. For those in the Energy Committee, to Freedom Energy, which is the broker that the Energy Committee had talked to back in May of 2021, and asked them to give me a new quote. They're supposed to have that for tonight. I think it's coming any day now. But through the help of Lee downstairs in the accounting, I've given them all of those electrical accounts. And actually, when you look at how many accounts, a lot of electrical accounts. And every building contracting with Unitel of it. So I think this is pretty, but that's in parallel with, and I will continue to work at Energy, that's your choice, and Freedom Energy, if they decide they want to buy us with bill.
In the addendum, I've just given you an example of the Massachusetts clean energy requirements going out to 2030, and essentially that's what the state requires in terms of renewable energy for any electricity that comes through the Commonwealth. And then I gave you some examples of some of the outreach we've done with different municipalities. We've done lawn signs, we've done TV commercials, we've done bookmarks. Any way that we can reach the public with information about the program and essentially inform people so that they can get into the program if they wish. And that's, besides procurement, the most important part of this is public outreach and education.
And that's probably another piece where the town will get involved. That would be town ministers for themselves as to how do you want to looking for that. Also, looking for your input on the amount of green energy, all of that.
And essentially in the package that I provided you, I just gave you a couple of other pieces of information about community electricity aggregation. And again, you have my card. If there are any questions, that's my cell phone number. Don't hesitate.
I have some.
There's a big surprise.
Are we starting with the audience?
Yeah.
Or are we starting?
Let's start with the board.
Okay.
So, Teresa, if you want to go.
Okay. So, yeah, I do. Okay. So I want to make sure I understood, because I think I did. Okay. We have two choices, right, for energy aggregation, but the bulk of what you're doing is not getting the price, the distribution, the price of the energy, which you have to. The bulk of what you're doing is here. Well, that's what. But you did kind of imply, and I want to make sure I understood, if we went with the second choice, because they have a much smaller audience or customer load, the chance of getting the same bid is less. If you both went out the same hour that they met at, because they only have 1,000 customers and we have, what, you know what I'm saying? You think we can price it? Did you say that? Did I understand that correctly?
You're talking
Yeah,
about
yes.
this. Essentially, again, the more load you have, activity, the more load you have, the better chance you are to get a lower price.
Okay.
So essentially, if you're looking at this graph, what makes most sense is to go with good energy because we have the
But again, this is the bulk why we wanted to
Yeah.
put it. Yeah, okay, I got that part right. And then one other question. You hypothetical, unit, their rights are published. Is there another way to get their actual?
well, okay, those rates.
Oh, okay.
Okay, but the reason I pulled in a hypothetical comparison is because the rates to compare to it were rates that were bid in another area.
Oh,
not
yeah,
the
that makes
unit.
sense. That makes sense. Okay, thank you. That helps me understand that.
But
I'm
I
done.
think that chart is important because it shows that in most cases, the actual is better than the utility.
You're right.
But it also points out there were a few cases, 3 or 4, where when they came out with their summer rates, their summer rate was lower than aggregation rate.
Yeah, but you got to make it through winter.
And the amount of white space above the line from the winter race is a lot more than the white space below the line from the summer race. We can't guarantee that will trend will continue, but that is simply the intent. And as John said, when they go out to bid, they might say the market's not right, and they pull the bids, or the price comes in, and the select board will say they don't like it, don't accept it. I mean, when you commit to this, you're not committing to that purchase price. That's something that happens way down the road. What you're committing to is to pay the consultant, support the town meeting vote to authorize you to do this. And then you get to take the power
Based on the bids.
based on
I mean, on
bids.
the date of bidding.
And the best part is you don't pay a consultant with energy or someone else for these services. They collect their fee as an adder to the electricity rate. So the rate that you will see on bid day includes their fee. Can you say what your adder has been?
The adder is commonly 1 mil per kilowatt hour. Essentially, that's 1/10 of a penny.
And that is built into these rates,
That's
in these
correct.
comparisons,
Yes.
what you're showing us.
Yes.
Okay, it includes the rate.
Yes.
So when you select the consultant with energy or someone else, you're not writing a check to them or paying them for their services. So it could be when they go to bid and you reject the bid, no business, they just,
So they've just spent, anyway, all that time working with us.
yes,
And that would be.
obviously they expect that you're going to come back with a bid that you're going to like, but there's no guarantee. There's no risk to the town either.
Okay. Can I just ask a question first on the page that Teresa was referencing, the one with Colonial Energy and Good Energy?
Yes.
And Fitchburg and the other surrounding towns. So my first question is, does Good Energy do town building aggregation for Fitchburg, or do they just do the community aggregation piece?
We can do your town buildings as well.
But do you do it in Fitchburg?
What we do when we get a client, okay, we go for the aggregation, the community electricity aggregation, because most towns already have a relationship with a broker to do their municipal accounts. So we don't look to disturb that relationship. Okay. All right. However, we have 3 or 4 of our community electricity aggregation clients who have said to us, hey, you know what? Can you bid our town accounts for us? And we've done that. Okay. But we like to keep those separate from the aggregation because the aggregation the community electricity aggregation is a residential rate, where the municipal accounts are G2s, they're commercial rates. And many times those commercial rates, we can get lower bids for those.
Okay.
Okay.
So my next question then has to do with the residential aggregation. If in fact we were to choose Good Energy and we were to go with you, so you're bidding us with Fitchburg, does this mean we would need to be on their bid cycle? How does that work? Because it looks like you go out like maybe once a year for different rates, just looking at this, or every 5 months or 6 months, or?
You know, our contracts lately have been 30 to 36 months. So if we bid something today, it wouldn't be renewed until August of 2025.
Okay, so I'm looking at the green line, and I'm looking at this, and I see the rate change February, April, June, August, October, December of 2021. But I'm just trying to make sense here.
It looks like we might have had a short-term rate.
The last bid was sometime in 2018, and then it bid somewhere in 2021. It changed. Okay, I got it.
The initial contract we did with Ross's group down south was 2 years.
Okay.
And then we came back with another 2-year bid. But in the middle of that bid, there was a change in law provision exercised because of changes in Massachusetts law, which bumped that rate up just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Now, our current contract with this group ends in December 2023. It's not on the chart here. It doesn't go out that far.
Okay.
But essentially, it started in December of 2020, and it's going out to December of 2023. So
Okay.
it's a 3-year contract.
So if the market were to change, Good Energy or your consultant might say, instead of keeping a 3-year contract, maybe we'll renew after a year and a half.
Okay, to put us in line to get that more advantageous bid if we're paired with Fitchburg.
What we present to you on bid day is a matrix of bids by each supplier that wants to bid 12, 18, 24, 30, 36 months.
Okay.
Okay, so you have a matrix of all these different bids over those time periods. And obviously, we recommend to you which we think is the best. You select the one you want.
Okay.
And part of that reason for looking at the different duration of those bids is at the end of that bid, you may say, now we're going to be synced up with Fitchburg, or now we're going to be synced up with the other aggregation towns.
Okay.
So that's part of the process, is to know how to increase your purchasing power based upon the length of the contract and then who you might be doing.
See what would happen with Fitchburg is we are hoping that we can go to bid with Fitchburg very soon, like September. Okay, we're hoping to go to bid for them in September. They may have a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract at that time. If you start the process now, you're not going to go out to bid for 18 months or maybe longer. Okay, so what we would do is we would say to you, hey, you know what? What's the best thing for you to do is to do a bid that's coterminous with the next renewal from Fitchburg. So that then on your, you may go out for 12 months just to be coterminous with Fitchburg. And then on that renewal, you both go out together.
Okay. So I want to let Eric ask his question. Geraldine, you had your hand up, and I know Ron had his hand up. So go ahead. And Chaz, we'll get to you. I'm not done. I've got a whole thing, but your hand's like enough. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, so I appreciate the detail about how the becoming coterminous with Fitchburg would work. That was one of the questions I did have. I did also have just more of a comment, which is I have seen this work. I did it in one municipality because I watched the process from the beginning, from this meeting to multiple renewals in Lowell. And it does work out the way that Ross and John have said, which is it's much smoother, especially for seniors on a fixed income. The spike in prices do not happen in the winter. And the vast majority of the time, you're paying less for your energy than someone who's just on the generic rate. And that's the kind of the important takeaway that I have from it is it's the smoothing out of the rate jumps, and it's the understanding that you're playing the long game, and over time you're going to be end up paying less than someone who's just sitting out there on the basic standard rate.
Geraldine, you're
I'm curious as to, in China, there are a lot of people who do have solar. How does that affect those people?
Good question. Essentially, solar contracts and people that have solar panels on their roof, they have what's known as a net metering agreement with the utility. Okay, that's separate and apart from the aggregation. They're mutually exclusive. Okay, so one doesn't affect the other.
So they would not opt in, they would opt out if everybody.
No, they can opt in for any electricity used off the grid. Some people have credits from the solar panels that they don't use any. But for those people that own a number of solar panels, they would get their electricity from the grid, from the aggregation, and then they would get their
net metering.
Yes.
Okay. So Ron, did you have a question?
Well, I just wanted to offer a little bit from the discussions that the Energy Committee has had. And of course, we're responsible for the Green Communities Grant Program that town is in. But in considering this, we had looked at first, of course, at the possibility of saving money and stabilizing costs, which for long term and for schools and stuff is probably very beneficial. But it's just become so obvious more recently that the whole aspect of our responsibility in the whole environmental issue, reducing carbon, that is a very powerful reason for our work and motivator. And we just hope the town will also look at that as a possible, not just saving money, but also, making choices that will help reduce carbon emissions. That's our greatest hope for both, because the residents can make their own choice. The town, as a group, I hope that's the way we go. We can save some pollution in the process. It's pretty obvious every day. We're driving by a sign that says "Don't use water outside," and the heat we're getting, the fires, the life-threatening circumstances around the country, and in the world. We got to do our part. That's all. And I hope the town will make that kind of choice when we'll consider that when we make our choices on the municipal, on the town building side.
When we first started working back in 2014 with Ross's group, the emphasis was more on trying to produce savings. Since then, there has been more concern for the environment and more concern for putting more renewable energy into the mix. So, certainly what you say, Ron, is true. There is much more concern in the last 5 years and towns have figured out that aggregation is a very good way to help them move toward their climate action goals and toward some of their green energy goals and green community goals. So it's become a real viable vehicle for towns to use aggregation to help improve the environment by putting more green energy into the mix of their product options.
I see Michael has his hand up.
Yes, you can hear me, hopefully.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, I agree with everything Ron just said. I had a follow-up question sort of related to that. I saw one of your slides, I think, was using another town like Melrose as an example, where you have different mixes of renewable energy as options. You know, you could go with the state kind of minimum, or some sort of default mix, or, you know, even 100% renewable. Is this kind of decision something that's made collectively by the town, or does each individual resident decide that? On the residential side?
On the residential side, the town selects the products that they want to offer, and each individual resident picks the one they want.
So there could be multiple options, like if the town decides to do it that way. Is that what you're saying? Oh, I see.
On slide 11. Well, yeah, Ross has it up on the screen now.
Right. Okay. So sample product mix, meaning the town hypothetically might decide that these are the three options that could be available, and then each individual would decide, okay, I want one or another.
Many towns start out with a small amount of green energy in their standard product, like say 5% additional over the state requirement. And then they give towns the option, or residents the option of a basic product, which is the same amount of green energy as required by the state, which in this year is 20% of Massachusetts Class 1 renewable energy, okay? And then for those that want to go 100% green energy, they can have that option as well. So essentially what it does, it gives everybody a choice of how they want to participate in the aggregation.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I would be, if they move this project ahead, I would be looking forward to meeting with the Energy Committee and the Select Board to help define the town's power requirements and preferences. When I did this in the Southeast, there were some towns that said, I don't care about green energy, just give me the cheapest power possible. And there are other towns that said, no, we want 100%. But that's what I would be meeting with the Energy Committee and the Select Board, hoping to get their input. John mentioned there'll be a lot of public hearings, so we have a chance to hear from residents. But we would look for the town to give us direction so we know what type of products to go out to bid.
Essentially what the town does, what the board does, what the Energy Committee does, they give us guidance. We put everything together. You make the decisions. We do the heavy lifting.
So Ron, do you have another question, or
yes, yes. On the slide that we're looking at now, each of those options, standard, basic, 100%, it has a price per kilowatt hour associated with it, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And is there a range in that optional, between basic and 100%, because, I don't know how much range there could be. It's only going to be, I think we're starting at 12, 15 cents a kilowatt. Anyway, is there a range there between basic and 100%?
Well, again, it depends on the market for renewable energy at the time of the bid. And essentially, you don't have to make these decisions until the day of the bid. Okay, so this is a long way off at this point. But in the interim, there would be guidance from the guidance or guidance from residents who want to say, hey, I think 5% looks like a good number. Reason why 5% is so good is because in time, then they had price, which is 1/10 of a penny. So, for example, if you had a rate that was a basic rate that was 10%, 10 cents per kilowatt hour, you would put a penny to that to get your standard product. Okay. Right now, the 100% is running about 2.5 cents over the basic. So basic was 10.
Okay, could you?
100% would be 12.5 cents.
I was wondering.
That's about what the market is now. But again, we look at the market as we get closer to the bid, and you make decisions on what you want the mix to be.
So you have a mix base that you could be 10%, 15%, 5%, whatever you choose, right? There's a range that you can choose from.
That it's your decision to put into the standard product whatever amount of additional green energy over the state requirement that you want.
Thank you. Yes.
And when we get to that point, you'll know what the price differential is. So, you don't have to make that decision now. As John said,
Right.
You'll make that on bid day, and you'll know what your options are.
I like the green, the great energy education component that Good Energy has in this for the community. I mean, it's pretty good.
Is there like a? Oh, sorry.
The education and public outreach piece is extremely important. And we take a lot of time to do that because the last thing we want is confusion among your residents. And we want to avoid fools coming into your town manager or other departments asking questions. Okay. We want to make sure that everything is clear, everything is precise. And again, we do this through multiple channels so that people understand what's going on. And, again, we meet with community groups, with your town committees, any group that wants us to come before them to explain things, we will do that.
So Chaz, are you ready?
Have you had time to
Is
repair?
that a hand? It just looked like a pen right. I don't know if we got it.
So help me understand the municipal portion of it. We're able to do that separate from the community aggregation.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily need a town vote on that. It's something that the board would vote on.
Not at all.
Which would be a good kind of test pilot.
Because essentially all that's procurement.
Right.
We take everything, we take all the accounts, we look at what the load is, we go out and bid that load.
Yeah.
And then, whoever is in charge of saying yay or nay on the bid, and again, we can get 3 or 4 bids on that load. So contract lengths, different contract lengths.
Right.
I envision working that in parallel with the residential aggregation.
Mm-hmm.
I will ask Good Energy to prepare a quote for that. And I've already asked Freedom Energy, the group that the Energy Committee has worked with a year and a half ago, to prepare the quote. And if those look feasible, I'll bring them to you and Eric to decide which one you want. Doesn't, we can go out and look for some more.
So we can use separate companies, separate consultants for municipal versus the other. On the municipal buildings, the buildings piece of it, is that a shorter timeline? Because you only need to educate us. You don't have to educate the whole town. Is for the bidding piece of it, does the timeline shrink?
Well, again, that's simply a procurement piece. Okay, it's not.
So we do have to go out to procure.
Right, and it's not something that has to go through DPU.
Yeah.
Something you decide on.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So essentially, that's a matter of just looking at what your electricity load is and getting bids on it. That's all there is to that.
That can happen relatively quickly. I would say in a couple months.
Yeah.
Right.
Decision that's made here. John's right. It doesn't have to go through DPU or the Department of Energy. I'll talk to 2 consultants and bring you numbers, and then you can decide what you want.
Right. So my question then continues, because if we did it concurrent with the residential, does it allow for us to have a better price to do them together? They're still just completely separate.
What's going to happen is that your accounts, your municipal building accounts, are commercial accounts.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. They have a lower level of rate here in the Unitil area. So it's better to bid them separately than to bid in the average.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, go-
Is there an advantage, instead of doing them concurrently, to almost like use the municipal program as a pilot, or to do it before?
I don't think the municipal program would be a pilot for the residential because they're totally different.
Okay.
But it can be done initially, just why not save money now versus waiting, 18 months for the residential. So I'm prepared to move ahead and get you quotes on the municipal consolidation as soon as I can. And so I've got quotes in process from Freedom Energy. And today I talked to John and asked him to prepare the same thing from Good Energy. I've already sent Good Energy copies of all the municipal light bills that Lee and the county was very nice to collect for me. So.
And that can just move forward with the work that the Energy Committee is doing and what that's done.
Yeah, I think that can happen relatively quickly.
So is there a motion to have Ross bring us 2 quotes, one from Clean Energy and one from Freedom Energy for municipal aggregation? Because we can pretty much decide whether we want to hear more about that tonight. This is separate from the community piece.
Can we discuss what we're going to make the motion first?
I'll
make a motion. Okay,
Yeah.
so moved.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
There is a second.
All right, so now let's discuss.
So when we get these quotes, is the municipal program the same thing, that the cost of your services is part of the kilowatt cost, or is that paid from the towns?
No, it's part of the rate.
It's part of the rate. So when we get the back, we'll get, depending if your fees are the same, the rate, no matter what, if one's more, they're just going to be added to the rate.
You'll be getting a number that excludes the fee as well, so the electricity cost.
Okay, but it's not town cost that's going to be passed on to the town,
No.
except for in the idea of the rate.
Yeah, there's no out-of-pocket expense for the town.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No.
All right, so Ross, when, we haven't voted.
Good to vote.
All right, so, Teresa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Essex and Uranian, yes.
And Veronica Tell, yes. So Ross, when do you think we can come back to visit us? We have an August 23rd and then September 6th and September, what is the next one? 20th.
Can I just?
Absolutely.
I apologize for interrupting.
No.
So I think for purposes of the town building aggregation, I think the board has voted, and we're going to ask to get those 2 quotes. And as soon as Ross gets them, he can communicate them, and we'll obviously schedule that for a meeting.
Okay.
I would ask the board if after this presentation, does the board feel as though they're comfortable moving forward with Good Energy as a consultant for the greater community aggregation? And the reason why I think that is a longer lead time, and the sooner we can get someone on board, the quicker we can get in line to get the better rates. And I would suggest that given that Unitil has a very small footprint in Massachusetts, and that the load that Fitchburg has is such a large percentage of their Massachusetts load, that it might make sense for us to choose Good Energy, with the goal of eventually getting Townsend in that same sync with Fitchburg and be able to bid in their same pool. I just wanted to throw that out there. Something we could do now to start the process to try and thinking of fall town meeting.
Can I ask a couple more questions, Mr. O'Rourke here? About the solar panel one. If a community member, so everybody's opted in unless they opt out, all right? So that's the way this works, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so once you've opted in, can you ever decide to opt out?
Oh, you can opt out at any time. You can even opt back in if you.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay, so it's pretty flexible in that respect.
I thought there was a time delay from after you opt out to when you can opt back in again. So I think DPU doesn't want someone playing the market change.
There used to be, okay, not anymore though. Okay, and when the law was passed, a lot of people have a problem with the opt-out provision. Okay, let me explain why that was put into the law. When this passed in 1999, municipal aggregation law, there were two things that they said: the organizing source within any town with the town government. That's why it's called a municipal aggregation, and the board gets to, make the decisions. The second piece of that is that it's an opt-out provision. The reason for that is that the best way to build the largest buying group is through an opt-in. All right. With the opt-out, there's a 30-day period, which is essentially 36 days because of mailing on both sides, where people have an option of saying, oh, I don't have to do anything and I'll be in the program, in that standard, that default option. Okay, so that'll get the most people in to participate in the program, which is very important. Okay, because if it was an opt-out program, all right, you would have a situation where suppliers don't know what they're bidding on the program. And what would happen most of the time, suppliers won't. Now, case in point, Hampshire and Rhode Island, within the last 2 years, changed their aggregation programs from opt-in to opt-out. Their programs were on the books for 10 years. They didn't have any aggregations because of the fact that the suppliers are saying, hey, you know what? We don't know what we're bidding on here because we don't know how many people are going to be in this program. Recently changed their law to make it opt-out. So now they're getting some interest from suppliers, both Rhode Island and New Hampshire. Suppliers know that when we do a program, we're going to get between 80 and 85% of the eligible customers participate. So they know exactly what they're bidding on in terms of the load. They know they're going to be bidding on 85%. They're going to get 85% of the eligible load. They know what they're bidding on. They will bid essentially. They know the specs, so they know what they can bid on, and they can sharpen their pencils and give a reasonable estimate. Whereas if you put uncertainty into it through an opt-in program, they don't even bid because they don't know what they're bidding, and that's the reason for that.
Okay. Could you put up page 10? Okay, so my question on this is, what's the timeline from town meeting until we're ready to go to bed, the outreach in March?
Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, now I want to tell you something. When we did this with Ross's group, we got it through the DPU in an average of 2.5 months. Okay, 2.5 months. We have plans. We have 6 plans trying to get through DPU that have been there for 2.5 years. 2.5 years. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe we do have to vote.
We think there's some legislation that is in the works that will cut that period down, but not 2.5 months.
Wow. And is that because of volume of communities wanting to do this, or is it because of COVID and so nobody works anymore?
I don't want to speculate on the reason.
It is phenomenal.
But it should be.
10 years now.
Yeah.
The board might want to think about talking to some of our representatives and senators about ways to speed this up, because I think it's a legislative act to get DPU, the Department of Energy, moving. Good at all of that, because they're the the board can get involved.
One of the situations that there are dockets that go through the DPU have a statutory requirement for them to make a decision, maybe 90 days, 180 days. Okay. The dockets for municipal aggregation do not have, a deadline. So what happens is when they get busy, those municipal aggregation dockets that were coming up to the top now get put under a bunch of dockets that have statutory deadlines. Okay, that's one of the reasons why this has happened. Okay, now as I said, there's some things in the works that may tack on a statutory deadline to municipal aggregation dockets. We're hopeful that is the case.
Okay.
I just want to go back to the municipal program for a minute. I do definitely want to get the votes as soon as possible, but I also don't want to lose the work that the Energy Commission has done on their background and the work that they did as well. So if we can make sure that's also part of the package that we see.
Absolutely. I was talking to Freedom Energy, which is a company that have started looking.
I was sure you were doing it. I just wanted to put it out there.
I am open to contact from your board and the Energy Committee.
Yeah.
Any of the residents out there, how they like to staff.
And then the second thing, I am comfortable with going ahead tonight to discuss, go forward with selection.
So we have the motion for municipal aggregation. You'll get the quotes from at least those two that you're already in the works with. And let us know when we should meet, and we can invite the Energy Committee to join us for that meeting. Might be worth doing it in a separate meeting that is not part of our long Board of Selectmen meeting. So, sorry.
No, you're not.
Not at all. Anyway, so I guess now we're ready for the second motion to go forward with Good Energy to work on community aggregation with Townsend.
I'll make a motion that we select Good Energy as our community electricity aggregation consultant. Thank you. It doesn't come to them.
And I second that.
All right. Is there any further discussion?
I want to make a comment to say that I'm going with the recommendation of our consultant on this. This is why we have people do the footwork for us.
The same thing. I appreciate what Ross has done here. Thank you very much for what you've done. That also plays into my decision, the chart on 14 on how that was explained to me. So I just think we are doing our due diligence. You did your due diligence, so I don't have any concerns about going forward.
I agree with you, Ruth. I especially like the fact that it's that Fitchburg is decent on it. Makes big difference. If we can, even if we do have to have a shorter time frame for them to sync up with them. So.
Well, the bigger picture, I think, is that we are listening to residents and actually doing something that, a lot of people say you can't really do anything with the energy costs. Well, there is something, and we are doing something about it. And I think that's equally as important. With all the data points that I look at with the town, seeing the maturity rate here in town, it's a little disturbing to see the peaks and valleys in the you can't plan for it, you can't budget for it, and I think that's going to provide a lot of relief for a lot of individuals in one respect, but also we have taken time and energy and resources to develop, having a community resource person here. And had we not been able to work on things like this, we might be overloading that particular individual with things. So I'm 100% for this.
All right, so are we ready to vote?
Yes, we are.
All right, Teresa.
Teresa A. Morse, yes.
Chad Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Paulo. So thank you, Ross, and thank you, John.
If I could add just one thing, I understand municipal government because I was a selectman for 9 years. Unfortunately, chair for 8 of those years. This election expired.
We're working for that.
I understand the process you go.
Well, thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you, Ross.
We'll go with the next step.
When I
whatever
have some
that may
quotes for
be.
the municipal buildings, I'll get in touch with Eric and figure out when to talk about it. In
Okay,
the meantime, I
next,
think it's looking towards town meeting as far as getting the town to vote for the residential acreage.
We can
Right,
get
and
those
so
out
we'll
to the
need
Energy
some-
Committee too, so that they can have a peek at it. Yep.
right, so we'll need some community outreach before that meeting. So thank you very much.
Thank you much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Michael.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron, thank you. Michael, yes. All right, so give me a minute to figure out where I am.
4.2.
Oh,
Well, if I could speak real quick, given that we have people who are here waiting for 4.3,
Yeah.
it
Oh, why
might
don't
make
we
sense
do
to take
that?
that out.
yeah, let's do that. Let's do 4.3 and 4.4. Do we need a vote to do that? Or can we just take it out?
No, you can take it out. You can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
You're the
you're
chair.
in charge. Just take that out.
Okay. All right, we're taking it out of order. So we're going to go to the gazebo.
Good night. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, you get Ross.
I got to go home.
Yeah. You sure you don't want to swap?
Come and gone.
All right, so 4.3. We received this from the Cemetery and Parks Department. I'll just read this letter. At the Cemetery and Parks Department meeting of July 26, 2022, the commissioners voted to accept Robert Darian's very gracious pro bono service to the town of Townsend for the architectural, consulting, and construction control services for the restoration of the bandstand. And so the proposal is in here. And do I need to read these into the record, or are we good? Okay. So he has graciously offered to provide drawings, etc. He is an architect, and to provide his services to work on the restoration / replacement, whatever it winds up being, of the bandstand. And he's asking, upon completion of the project, the architect would like to have the services he provided acknowledged in the memory of the Darian family, Robert A., Elsie, and Michael Darian. So I think that's a reasonable.
I'd just like to, I want to publicly apologize for Geraldine for not getting back to you. I apologize. I started a new project in Worcester and kind of took much more of my time than I expected. But I had asked her to if she was going to be here, because I just want to make sure that everybody's on the same page with what's going on, and before I put my signature on anything.
Well, first of all, we no, that's fine. I've been there before. First of all, we also, the Friends of the Bandstand also provide. They don't really do have to recognize us that much, but we did take a vote also to have Mr. Berry be the architect. I thought we were coming quite a ways, but we have quite a ways to go. We managed to come up with one thing that we did really. In Fort Perry. And we have some cut off lists. So many ideas, and there's just so many ideas that need to be brought forward. And They're not being brought forward quite as fast as I'd like them to be. This evening, getting walls. So, everything's done. Oh, yeah, you're doing fine. Thanks. But so I think it's time to, we're going to go forward with this. I think it's time to make two decisions. I don't think we can go with, we might repair or we might fix or those kind of words it should be the word replace. That bandstand is in terrible shape. And it's not big enough for our community. The size band that we have. That bandstand should be used for other things other than just being a bandstand. It should be used for many reasons. And I think that we just need to really think about what we want to do. Thank you.
So I should just say, we don't talk until Wednesday for the next one, but I've put on the agenda for August 23rd, a joint meeting with the Cemetery and Parks, the bandstand, the building inspector, Mr. Darian, who I assume will attend, and us, to just discuss what we're doing with this. We had given them a deadline of early June to come back with what are we doing, and we're beyond that by a couple months now. And so it would be good to know what the plan is.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I agree with you, Geraldine. Sometimes it has to be principles over personalities. In something like this, there's going to be a lot of discussion on both ways. There's going to be some kind of compromise, and I'm not looking for a miracle here by any means, but I just want.
There has to be compromise. Yeah,
I agree with you there, and I think that together, I think we all can compromise. The scope has narrowed, and I think that there's some decisions that need to be made, and I'd much rather be making those decisions with everybody. Okay, and you're comfortable with that as well. Okay.
What I see as the main problem is that we didn't come back in June because we were working together.
Yeah.
Then the next meeting, we fell apart. Just recently was there at that meeting, and we had that list of things we wanted to do, and that was a list that was agreed upon by both parties. Thank you for that.
And you just needed a few days to tweak it.
So we did. But this last one, when Mr. Therian came and we explained to him things that were on that list, and he had a whole lot of own ideas, which were his. First of all, that the Sterling District Commission is not going to like some of those things, and things that we do not want to do. And it's like he was focusing in on the commissions and forget the friends who initiated this whole thing.
Right.
So, that's the basic problem.
Well, I just want to make sure that this is it's not a big project, but it is a big project because there's a lot of emotions behind it.
Yes.
There's a lot of, and I don't think it's something that we're all going to agree upon. And if you think that's bad, what's going on in your meeting, you should go to a state meeting. One week they're all in agreement. The next week nobody knows what anybody else is talking about. So that happens all along. But I just want to make sure that we get everybody together and move forward with it.
Right. I know it's going to be this, and this. I don't mind, we're going to maybe that's good.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that we talked about in phase 1 and phase 2. If you're going to do something, do it right once. Don't come back and do it. I know the money is going to come, but I think we're talking about perhaps 3 line, 2 additions on each side. only thing was the airplane, but I can't do that. I know. No, I got one. I won't mention that one. But to me, if you're going to make it bigger that way, just make it bigger.
I guess I agree with that. I think that you either keep it as it is size-wise and don't put porches on or whatever it is. That just looks horrible, I think. Or you make it, you enlarge it and follow exactly the, the structure that it is. Just increase the diameter. And so,
when we were talking, they were thinking the idea of doing the ADA extension and enlarging it by adding ADA to it. But when the band was performing, they would use that for the extra space.
Mm-hmm. Which is important. And that's another person that with Betty May, I had a conversation with her in regards to that as well. I think I just want everybody to agree to disagree if it comes down to that. But, as long as we can get everybody feels good that they can get their opinion out, I'd be happy with that.
And there's something we could do to, on both ends to be what there are.
Yeah.
We don't need to do a little bit.
Sounds like it's time for a meeting on the 23rd.
I think so.
To nail it down.
It defeats the purpose of the restoring the historical gazebo if you're going to have to put additions on it. You no longer have the historical gazebo.
Well,
what we've got now.
Yeah, but there's been additions to it, like the backs of the benches, which kind of takes away from the historical aspect because the backs of the benches were never there before when it was originally built.
Right. So, in any event, we need a discussion. So the 23rd.
23rd?
Get your gavel on.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, so it's not going to be a separate meeting.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you very much for coming. So we are not done with this yet. For Robert Darian's, there is a standard contract attached to this, but I think we need to have a standard contract, but it has Ross Perry's signature down at the bottom, interim town administrator, and has the date of March 12th, 2022 on it. So I think we need to look at this before we do anything with it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Pardon me? No, I don't think that. I think this is a.
He must have used some other contract as a template.
It's typed up with. Yeah, I think it's probably. It has Roger's name on it as the contract manager. So I think he probably pulled out something that was in the files for other work and said, "Well, this is the standard contract." So I think we need to
double check it.
Yeah. So I'm not going to do anything with that yet. So the standard contract can come back next time. Yeah. And then the other thing is the disclosure by special municipal employee of financial interest in a municipal contract. So if you're doing it pro bono, I guess this must be this for you. Is this do you have a financial interest?
I believe that the answer would be, because it's pro bono, you don't have a financial interest, but that's the appearance of impropriety that he's disclosing, is that he's entering in a contract, even though it's pro bono, the appearance of impropriety is something might think that he has a financial interest in it. Mm-hmm. I don't think there is a conflict here, but to be overly cautious, I requested that he fill out this form, and that the board just needs to accept it. And I think that you are correct, because it's pro bono. There is no. This is more about appearance than actual conflict.
Because if you called the ethics, they'd probably say the same thing too.
Okay, there's no place on here to sign.
You just need to accept.
You just need to accept it for the record.
So have you guys seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So is there a motion to accept the disclosure by a special municipal employee, Robert Darian, of financial interest in a municipal contract.
I'll make a motion to accept the disclosure by special municipal employee of financial interest in municipal contract as required by Mass General Law C 26A Alpha, Section 20 Jolly. And the employee is Robert Varian.
No second them.
All right, any further discussion? All right, hearing none. Teresa, how do you vote?
So I just want to understand, all we're doing is just accepting this into the record.
The disclosure, yes.
Yeah,
Okay. Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Kelly.
Okay.
So that's
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And Sabrina, I'm just going to put this right here. So it'll come out. I might have things slightly out of order. It's fine. All right. September primary warrants is in our package. And this does need a signature.
Did you want to go to 4.2?
Nope. I wanted to finish 4.4 and then come out. I said that.
Yes, you did.
After 4.2. So, all right. So,
Nope.
sorry. Is there a motion to sign the? Do we need a motion to do that? To sign the primary warrant for September?
No, we just.
I don't think so.
Okay, we just need to sign it.
And it's just the primary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it needs a date given under our hands this second day of August.
Actually, I take that back. It's probably better if you just have a motion signed just for the record. That way the signatures have been authorized. But the board is saying it's okay for everybody to sign.
All right, so is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we sign the September primary warrant.
I second that.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Teresa A. Moss, yes.
Chaz Sexton Duranian, yes.
And yes, okay. I'm going to sign this right now. And I'm going to put the date on.
It's already August.
I know.
Years flying by.
All right, so now I'll get to go back. To annual goals. Do we need to sign the letter for Robert?
The bandstand restoration.
Mm-hmm.
That's
The architectural service agreement. We'll do it with the
contract.
contract.
I think those are the same.
So that's going to be the 23rd.
Yeah.
23rd. Vote to sign agreement and contract. Okay. All right, are we ready to talk about evaluations? We have the form signed. All right. So we have two things in there. We have the one that Chaz put in. We have the one that I put in. Mine is a carryover from former TA.
both mine.
And yours was something we talked about then too. So I like things to be specific, like the budget or the, I mean, anyway. So I guess, Eric, what are your goals? What do you want to get done?
Well, I mean, so this first year is obviously going to be a learning experience for myself and the board. And so my goals are probably kind of relatively generic. I mean, they're I have some specific things I want to do, but they involve, making sure that we are maintaining sound fiscal policies through the year, and that our fiscal health of the town by the end of the fiscal year is as good or better as it was when we started. Mm-hmm. That we come through with a balanced budget that supports all the services that the Board of Selectmen and myself work together to make determine the priorities for the town. I have some goals that I would like to see us substantially complete with collective bargaining agreements for all the unions. Mm-hmm. Going forward, that the board that are fiscally appropriate for the board while being appropriate for the employees as well. So those are my kind of financial thoughts. I want to make sure that we do an evaluation and a plan for the town properties. Whether that's, for things that need to happen to the town properties that we're using every day, or whether it's plans for the old fire station or the old library, and, how we're going to move forward with those properties, whether they're in municipal use or whether we decide it makes more sense to try to put them out to bid for some sort of private use. Make sure that the physical properties that we have are having the appropriate preventative maintenance done, so that that these properties, a lot of which are gifts from other people, are being kept in the shape that they need to be kept in to survive for the town as long as we can possibly keep them, as well as start to plan for what's going to happen in the next 5 years with the properties that the town owns, and whether that means some comprehensive plans about where departments are, whether they're going to be in the same locations that they are now, whether we're going to move them to different physical locations. Some of those we already know are going to happen with the water department. They're going to move to a new physical location within the next 5 years. That's likely to create space that allows, potentially for us to consolidate or house, one or more other departments. And so I think our building infrastructure, making sure that it's maintained and that we're planning appropriately for that. That's kind of my building thoughts. I want to try and make sure that we are maintaining the staffing levels that we have now, and to try and get a full-time accountant on staff. Not that I think that Melanson is doing a poor job. I don't. The reality is, though, that there is something missed when we don't have a person in the building for the department heads and myself to access on a daily basis. And so if that's at all feasible, it's a goal to try and make that happen before the end of the fiscal year, as well as maintaining the other staffing. And I think the board has done a really good job in bringing the staffing levels up to more appropriate levels and trying to make sure that we're not doing any kind of backsliding with staffing. the course of the year. I want to, make sure that I'm working with the department heads about professional development for both themselves and their staff. Making sure that we're using all of the tools that we have, whether it be through Maya or through other professional organizations that the staff are members of, to get them that professional and personal development. I think that we are, one of the great things about having Emily on staff is that she has pried open some resources that the town has had for a while, but has not really availed itself of. And so making sure that we set up a sustainable program for the use of those, quite frankly, free resources that aren't costing the taxpayers a dime, that we're already paying for with our when we pay for our insurances, right. To making sure that our staff understands and appreciates those, and that we can come up with a good plan to use those, and to make sure that on top of that we're also doing professional development so that the staff is staying up to date on all of the most important things about their jobs and about the industry that they're working in, whatever field they're in. So that's kind of my goal for the staff. Kind of beyond that, I do think that there are kind of a series of very specific wish lists that I know that we talked about. I think we even started talking about that in my initial interview, about some specific things that I think that the town indicated that they were interested in, that I indicated I thought might be a good idea. So things like working on the Community Preservation Act and things like ensuring that we are appropriately monitoring and applying for grants that we can use to kind of further the public appreciation of town. I have some wish list items that I know are probably not going to happen, like that aren't, let me rephrase that aren't going to happen this year, but I want to work towards. So there are things like doing a further investigation into whether or not a Department of Public Works for Townsend makes sense and is something that we can do. Doing a further investigation into, is there a possible way for us to get a town engineer and have engineering services in the town? Is there a possible way for us to have, and some of these are overlapping, as I think in my mind the same person might be able to do some of these jobs. So is there a way to have a person who's a project manager for the town?
Who's an architect and an engineer? Great.
Yeah. That would be an architect, engineer, project manager, psychic, who's also really good at getting grants. Yeah. But someone who can I think, is it possible to find someone who can work to be the on the ground person that's done a thing? I think, quite frankly, the stuff that I think the board has kind of had on their shoulders, for a while, and before that wasn't really happening at all. And so those are kind of longer term goals. I'd like to. We may not get around that corner in FY 2023, but I'd like to have the investigation started and see if there's a way that we can plan for that in the future. I think getting a good way down the road with the aggregation programs. I think completing the town building aggregation as soon as possible so that we can go out to bid and get a preferential rate for the town electricity, especially given what happened at the end of the last fiscal year with our electric rates. It's really crucial. And I think that, that's something, but I also appreciate that one of the things that I hear the most from people who talk at town is how much Unitel drives them nuts, and that being able to try to do something to rein in Unitel rates is really important, and it's very much in the forefront of, I think, the citizens' minds, rightfully so. And so us working with Good Energy and pushing that forward is something I think is a goal of mine to try to move that ball as far as possible during the next fiscal year. I would also like to explore a way to, try and find funding for the other big, source of consternation for citizens, which is the roads.
We need to fund that management plan.
Yeah,
we need to fund.
Yeah, and so whether figuring out a fiscally appropriate way to find greater sources of funding for the fixing of the town's roads is something that, quite frankly, if you ask the citizens, they will tell you we need to do. Yeah. And so I think that's one of my goals, is to listen to the town and say, if we could, bless you all. If we could come out of FY23 being able to tell the constituents that we're 70% down the road of reducing your electrical bills, and we have a plan to start working on the potholes in town. I mean, I think we could, count that year as a successful. I think that would be a successful place to be at the end of FY23 on those goals.
Okay, so thank you, Eric. What I'm going to do is take this, and under number 3 on mine, and then we'll get to yours, financial, I'm going to put in where it says budget preparation and administration, maybe we'll call it that. I changed it to financial thoughts. But that's with me writing. Maintain sound fiscal policy, a balanced budget that incorporates everything we think is important. I also have fiscally appropriate negotiations with all the unions that have not been settled yet, which is pretty much the AFSCME unit. Under number 5, so that was managerial skills. The one thing I'm going to keep is the negotiations, which is C.
Yep.
Under 5, direction, supervision of town organization. I have several things here. Maintaining the staffing levels we have, having a full-time accountant in place if possible.
Yes.
Sustainable programs for use of free resources, staff development, growth and recruitment, staff development and growth for the department heads themselves and their staffs, the use of MIIA, professional and personal development, and that goes with the sustainable program for the use of free resources. All right, and then skipping 6, although we shouldn't, because you should put in there if you're planning to attend any conferences, because we did put that.
Sure, yeah, and that's that is
no idea when they are or where they are.
I need to figure that out.
Yeah, so to include that under productivity and reliability. I put building infrastructure. I wrote it there. I don't know if that's where it goes. You might need somewhere else. Did you notice there's no number 8 on there? It's missing.
It must have been deleted.
Yeah, probably. Building infrastructure.
I could guess a couple of things on what it could be.
Evaluation of a plan for town properties, those we're using every day and those we aren't. Perhaps to go out to bid for project use of those that we aren't, or to look for different uses, start to plan for the next 5 years, and appropriate use of the buildings and maintenance of them.
Okay.
Then we have the wish list, CPA, applying for grants, further investigation of the Department of Public Works, including town engineer, project manager, however that falls out. Energy aggregation, both town buildings and community, and those finding fiscally appropriate. So if I wrote that up and put that in,
Yes, go for it.
should I add, and I'll renumber and blah, blah, blah. Should I add anything from what you have, Chad?
No, just leave open for the comments and we can put our comments in there and I think that would cover it.
Okay.
I see this as like an onboarding year for him anyway. And I will say that, you know, I'm very happy to see the things falling into place like they have. And I think that everyone that we've brought on in the past year is doing a phenomenal job, much to my chagrin.
I would like if we could, partly because I had blood drawn the other day and it came up again. Like if we have a topic, like somehow the town minutia that's like that I brought up, like the signage and the public urination and the not being able to use the track at the gym. Like how can we address that?
The track at the high school.
I mean, unfortunately, I know the answer to that, and that's, you know, but
Yeah.
you know, that's
The part of that is, I mean, those are all important issues. I agree with you. It's finding the right venue to be able to vet them out.
Right.
That's the big thing.
Right, and maybe that's what it should be, like find a vendor, try to get the vet minutia as needed.
As far as the school is concerned, we're working on getting the agreement set up. The school, and you're on that committee, right?
Well,
Well,
yeah, let's talk about that, buddy.
Talk about
and I
that.
both attended, and I was going to send Randy Rush note. I'd like to see the finished document because that was a one and done meeting.
Yep.
That wasn't.
The agreement?
Yes, that was one
They
and done.
highlighted things, they already had opinions on what the answer should be, and they want to get it back to us. And it was kind of like, that's done. There really wasn't a lot of opportunity.
there was a legitimate question at the beginning of the agreement. You might have asked it, like,
Yeah.
how do you envision this going? And she said, well, I envision we're going to go through the whole thing today, and then we're going to be done.
And so we were. I had expected on the E&D piece, the agreement with the towns that we had the guy from Pepperell and what was his name, Matthew? I thought I was going to get a note about that because there was a question about policy and it wasn't put in there that they were required to come to the town to discuss a policy. I don't want to require a policy, but I think there should I think a discussion of policy of when do you, I understand that there are state rules around it, but when do we agree to return funds to the town? I think that there should be an opportunity to discuss policy given to the towns. And
there also should be opportunities to allow us to be able to future plan too. For instance, some of those school buildings, they probably won't have after a time period. So we as a town should be able to plan for those.
They did talk
a little bit about that, but I would like to see the agreement that there were a lot of points that were going to be taken back to the attorneys or whomever, and there's no mechanism for us to see the agreement.
Well, I do think she said that once they reconsolidated, she was going to send out the agreement.
It would, and there would be, I think, a public hearing.
Yeah.
She did say she was going to.
She did say she was going to send. I heard
as long
her
as
say that she was going to send it back out to the members.
as long as there is the ability for us to discuss. I was a surprise.
An agreement means that both sides need to have input. That's what an agreement
Well,
is.
I think that yesterday, was it? There was a meeting at Ashby Elementary. I listened to the school committee meeting, which was, I think, last week, because I was curious to see what would be said about that document. And it was pretty much, well, it's out with the attorneys. So So that is not part of this, but that's where that's, this is an.
That was, as you could tell, we were all had feelings. I'm having some feelings right now.
I would have commented had I thought it was an initial meeting.
Yeah,
I think
that
we
was
all
the impression.
I thought it was an initial meting, and I didn't comment. I know that Andrew and Referral
Yes, Andrew
did.
did a lot of comments.
Margaret Scarsdale did comment, but I would have commented.
Was there anybody from Ashby there?
Yes.
And they didn't comment?
Oh, there was discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a lot of verbal discussion.
Like these are the highlight section. They pass like right through
Well,
the section that
and then
this is what we're changing. Yeah.
The Zoom, which wasn't a Zoom, kicked us out. What, 4 times?
4 times. It was like a go to meeting, but it wasn't go to meeting. It was Google.
Yeah, Google Meets or Google something like that.
Or other that used to be Google something, and now it's Google something else.
It was, Chaz,
And
I'm
it was
not
a
kidding.
free account. It had to have been a free account, and it kicked us out. I had to text now.
The first time. I'm out. I'm kicked out.
Were you kicked out?
Yeah.
And he's like, yes, but we're back in now. And it's like, what? You know, I was probably down at the end of the list.
It was.
Got back in. So it was a little.
Disjointed.
Yeah. So, like 4 times. You're in the middle of a discussion, and boom, everybody's gone. And then
5 minutes later, after you get back on and everybody's chatting about how, oh, sorry, it was.
so not ideal. Buy a paid account is my suggestion, so that you don't get kicked out.
I think that is a paid service.
I think that I don't think it had anything to do with pay or not.
No,
Really?
I think it had to do because they would have had to create a new link for us.
Yeah.
The fact that we're going back in the same link meant it was just bad. There was some bad juju with whatever they were doing.
Okay, I'll go with bad juju.
it was
Okay.
very frustrating. Many levels. Anyway.
But the signage in the public urination too. I got 2 of those again last week. Different people.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, do we want to talk about public urination in the midst of Eric?
He said it's easy. Snap your fingers.
Okay, public urination. There's public urination and there's public urination. And there are 2 different things. It's like bio breaks. If you've ever gone on AMC hikes, guided hikes with AMC, it's bio breaks. Girls that way, guys that way. And you go pee in the woods. We have a lot of woods here.
But how would that be public? Is it
don't
public
think
exposure,
Well, it is
public
What
urination?
if you walk by and you see the guy peeing in the woods? Okay, my experience with this was when my daughter was 10 or 11, and we had season tickets to the Boston Ballet, and we parked in the garage. It was a night performance. Usually we did matinees, but blah, blah, blah. So we parked in the garage, and I think it's Tufts Medical Center, right next to the Wang Center, whatever it's called now. We come out, and there are 3 guys peeing on the other side of our car. And what I told my daughter was, this is the city version of peeing in the woods. So get in the car.
See,
And
that's
they were
why-
horribly embarrassed. There were girls with them, but that is what it was.
But that's
They
why
were
it's
There's no
right
trees.
above our fence.
There's no trees outside the way.
Up to a police officer to make a decision whether he feels that this could have been done elsewhere would be, it's just a citable offense. It's effective in a lot of places that have it.
Deciding that you're going to pee on the sidewalk outside of town hall is a whole different story. And so it's kind of like common sense.
Well, but I'm thinking what we're talking about though is what would be a proper venue for us to vet this.
Right,
If that's what we're talking about,
Yeah.
I don't know that it's a Board of Selectmen meeting, but I don't know that we're going to get people to talk about it either. I think that our best bet is to do something that was suggested, is to get some porta potties around town. If you're at the bike trail and you need to pee, there's a lot of woods along that bike trail. You're going to go pee in the woods. And then you're going to find somebody who's going to be incensed that you peed in the woods. Okay, I don't mind peeing in the woods. I am good with peeing in the woods.
What I'm seeing is how are we going to, what is our approach on this? Is it something that the selectmen need to talk about? Is it something that, I mean, my original thought was that it would be a police department thing. And then the police department with the Board of Selectmen, if you wanted to take it to the next step. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. And, and as far as, you can see that I am not in favor of writing a policy about that because I consider it to be common sense and dealt with by the police.
Well, I think,
But the problem is, three people came to me recently, okay, since I've been voting. The police cannot deal with it because there is no policy for them to deal with it at all. They can't even say, all they can say is he has every right to do that That's
not what they said. What they said was they were trying to interview one of the people who saw it, who never showed up at the police station.
We're hearing different stories.
Well, I think what I have heard from police about these situations, and it's not just a Townsend issue, it's Trevor, is that police officers feel hamstrung when they're asked to enforce it. Because if you don't have a town bylaw that says that this is a civil fine, then they have to treat it as public exposure,
which
is a sex offense, and so they just don't do anything because they don't want somebody says you were peeing on the street. If they go and arrest and charge you with it, it's going to be a sex offense, and you may be a sex offender after registering as a sex offender. Then the police say, no, we're not going to do that to somebody. And so it turns into it looks like the police are just walking around like this because they don't feel like they feel like all they have is a shotgun to kill a fly.
Right. The first person that contacted me said directly to me, and I assume they were being truthful, that it happened outside a restaurant. The child was there. The police were called, and the police then talked to your selectmen. There's nothing they can do.
What was the age of the child?
I didn't ask. They just said a child.
Okay, so there's a child and there's a child. But in any event, I can see doing that, but I think we should provide places that are public where you can urinate.
I'm just looking for the proper venue to discuss the issue.
But I don't
want to talk about the issue. I don't think it's appropriate for us to be talking about it.
I think what you should do is direct me to work with Jay. And that's the proper
venue. We can do that.
Direct me to work with Jay, and then I can work with Jay and see if it is an issue about enforcement because the police don't want to do that, then that's a bylaw answer and give them the tool to say it's a $25 citation. You're not going to get charged as a sex offender because you peed in the street, but then they can feel like they can do something. If it's not
coming from the police department, we'll be able to get a more well-rounded understanding of what they're looking at so that we can make the best decisions.
At the same token, I think there's a separate piece about now that we're creating these outdoor spaces that are close to residences and everything, do we need to put some facilities in?
Right.
And that's
And
I can investigate both of those things.
Okay, so do you have a motion to
I make a motion that we direct Eric to work with the police chief to see if we need to move forward with some type of citation or public hearing.
And I will second that.
All right. No further discussion.
Chaz, thanks.
Teresa Amos, yes.
Chaz, thanks, and Uranian.
And Veronica, yes. Okay, so I have to write this down.
Moving right along.
Right along.
Okay.
It came up while I was having blood drawn.
Well, I was trying to find the correlation between blood draw and
the nurse like, oh, I live in Townsend.
So for purposes of the evaluation, it sounds like what Veronica, you were proposing was that you were going to make some changes and maybe circulate it back to the board members to see how they talk about it.
Yeah, and then
We can do that on the 23rd.
Yes,
perhaps.
and we'll wrap this up.
Yeah, I'm good. I think that, again, because this is like his onboarding year, it'll give us an idea of where we want to go next year.
Yeah, and then at the end of the year, we'll obviously do this again, and we'll see.
I think our thought was that we would do it after the end of the fiscal year, after like June timeframe, do it to July, to the
The fiscal year. Yeah.
fiscal year,
Yeah.
and then plan the goals for the next year. And go on with that.
Yep.
All right. So that takes care of town administrator annual goals. I write up. Okay. Got that. All right, ARPA projects. I just want to very quickly take one and pass it down. There's one there for Sabrina too. So I had sent after our last meeting when we rejiggered, we redid a lot of the ARPA projects. Not a lot, maybe 3 or 4 of them.
Yes.
And I sent our changes to Jennifer. I haven't heard back yet. So, but this project setup needs to be reset, and I wanted to make sure that we hadn't gone over on stuff. So I tried to, so pretty much all our ARPA projects are set. We need a project number for down in the green section at the bottom for the cleaning and disinfecting public buildings. I didn't change words out here to the side. This is 90% FEMA, 10% us through the end of the year. But I did move that up under ARPA 18 in the blue section and put 10,000 on it because that's what we voted on. So does everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay. Then if you go to Meals for Seniors, which is ARPA 16, down in the green section, there's no dollars there. This is also something that's 90% FEMA, 10% us through the end of the year. But if you look up at ARPA 16, it's 134,250. We had originally had 145 there, and we took out 11,000 for the freezer, which last meeting, if you'll remember, we reallocated to the Council on Aging Assistant Director, along with 8,000 of wellness programming. So I dropped wellness programming, which is ARPA 03, to 462. It was 470.
Right.
Okay, and I added that to the 11,000 that was part of ARPA 16, and I put it down here. It needs a number from Jennifer as well.
Right.
For 19,000. And then the restoration of the conservation agent hours is 26,000, which we got that money by, we used to have under the cleaning, disinfecting public buildings, we had originally allocated 75,000. We're doing this as we go now. So the 10,000 will get us through the end of fiscal year 23.
Yep.
So if you sum these, it comes out to 2,848,550, and we actually get 2,840,000, like one. We're like 7,000 over. But a lot of these dollars are.
We still have that lump in other COVID expenses.
Exactly.
Is not
and
really tied yet.
You know, so in any event, things are floating in some of these. I didn't pull out, I should have removed the projects allocated but on hold. I should have removed that completely. The Harbor Sidewalk Bike Trail ARPA 07 is still in play, and it's 50,000. And that was allocated way back in the day. So this is where we are. I just wanted to make sure we were still on track. So we'll hear from Jennifer immediately. So that's all I have on ARPA, and if somebody has something else. Town administrator updates and reports.
So there are 2. I'm only going to do 2 tonight. One is very quick, which is to remind everyone that I am going to be on vacation starting on August 7th and going through the 21st.
Are we going the same place? Those are my dates.
Really?
I'll be up in Bahama.
So I'm going to the Jersey Shore.
Ow.
Wow.
Down, very down.
Yeah.
The Philly,
Opposite ends of the scale.
the Philadelphia Jersey Shore, which is way down south. I will have my cell phone. I'm going to have my laptop, not my work laptop, but I'm going to have my personal laptop, so I will be able to do work, and then I can forward emails from my cell phone to my personal email and have access that I need to do.
You will have an away message on your
I will
email.
have an away message on my email and on my phone, so that folks will know, and I will make sure all the department heads know, but they all have my cell phone if they need to get in touch with me about an emergency. So that's this is something that I think that Chaz and Veronica, you both knew was coming, because I think I mentioned it right in the beginning, just to make sure that the second thing is something that Harrison's actually been working on and keeping me, and probably he and I have been.
Back home to the hot seat?
Yes, come to the hot seat. Harrison's doing about 90% of this, and I've been working with him for about 10% of it. So it has to do with our website. I mentioned this to you.
Yeah, so what we've been doing, so our current website is with Civic Plus, I'm sure we all know, and it's an acceptable system. It meets our current needs, but we've had the system for a while. So I figured since we've had it for a while, we now have a webmaster in the webmaster position. I figured it was probably worthwhile looking at what other options we have that are out in the industry. So I've looked around at probably a couple dozen options, narrowed that down to a good 5, and engaged with them, email, Zoom meetings. And we really have 2 contenders. And that's Civic Plus with an upgraded version of their system, which is a lot more user-friendly, or Revise, which is another municipal-focused software provider. Their system is also significantly more user-friendly than our current one. But I think, do you want me to get into pricing?
Well, no, just to kind of speak to the background, our website is a very basic version of a Civic Plus website. It's a little bit clunky on the back end for use, as I think Veronica and Harrison have experienced in trying to maintain.
I've experienced that clunkiness myself.
Yeah. And so my initial kind of task to Harrison was, I wonder if there's a way to do this better given the resources that we have, which is, it's about
$2,205 per year is what we pay.
That's what we pay for our web hosting services. And that
we get our money's worth.
Oh yeah.
But only
money.
And so at the outset, the goal was, what would it cost to have what we want? What we think would be a great service? And when we realized that wasn't realistic, what are the options to do something that's nicer than what we have now, and would provide an enhanced level of ease in construction and service? And those 2 options, well, there's 3 options: the upgraded Civic Plus, the Revise, which is a different provider, or stick with what we have. Just kind of go with that provider.
So with Revise, we don't have to change our domain or anything. That gets all transferred over.
Yeah, we would use the same domain, and it would be like a whole migration process. We would go through, we would have a number of design meetings, and it would be a full, it's a different system. So there would be a full design meeting and things in that nature to kind of get what we want for the design. Structure-wise, there would be different meetings. Probably me and Eric and any one of you are more than welcome. I'm not sure who they usually have in those, but there's a series of meetings we would go through, and it would be the same process. Yeah, there are definitely trainings, and one of the big perks with Revise is they have unlimited training whenever we want. So, and for as many people as we want. And I think that'll be particularly helpful because I know Civic Plus does not have that with their training. I'm sure they charge a fortune. But the training, I think, will be really helpful.
Well, they just refer you to the videos in Civic Plus. Yeah. The concerns that I would have in regards to the upgrade on Civic Plus is looking at the spam things that we had dealt with the last week or so.
Yeah, I'm still pending an answer on that, or they're looking into it. But it's less of an upgrade and more of a full migration, I think, because so we're on their lower tier. They call that Civic Plus Open. They also have Civic Plus Central, which is their, like if you look at the City of Lowell's website, they use Central, and there's a different feel to it than what we currently use.
Now, didn't you work on the moving Civic Plus up to the next level where we're at now? And
well, it was a rewrite. It wasn't moving it up any level.
Just using the same.
We stayed at the same level, but we revamped what the pages looked like. Yeah, it was more of a refresh, and we did that because of cost.
Right.
Anything that we did more was more dollars than, I think it was $6,000. Which included our 2205. Our annual.
Yeah. So this upgrade, is that going to get rid of the cabinets and all that crazy crap that they have in there now? The way everything's stored, and
it would rearrange. They would bring in all the pages, try and consolidate some of the the one-off pages. You think you put up something for one time, you don't need to keep it there forever.
Right.
Try and eliminate some of the stuff that we don't need.
The clutter.
Yeah, and that would happen with Revise as well. For both of them.
So here's personal profiles and all that is a lot easier, I hope, than the way they have it.
I believe so. I haven't looked into that in particular, but we can certainly look further at that.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
You have to make you a person.
Yeah. Do either of them have a unidirectional syncing with the our Outlook, our town Outlook calendars?
Like for all the events on the calendar? Yeah. Possibly. I think Revise might. I'm not sure about Civic Plus. That's something that I can definitely dig into more and get the answer for you.
So at the end of the day, because we did go through the refresh with our current system, we wouldn't do that again. We wouldn't do another refresh on top of the one that was relatively recently done. If we wanted to stick with our current system, we would just continue to pay the $2,200 a year, and it would be the website that we have now. With Revise, they had it was like $8,000
for a one-time.
Yeah, an $8,000 one-time fee. And then they would add that to the annual fee, but break it down over 4 years. So your fee would be $2,000 more every year. It's like $3,800, I think.
I think something like that. So our annual would be $2,400 something, which is only $200 more than
wait, 80,000?
Eight.
Yeah,
we just need an extra 80,000. I'm sure we can come up with it now.
Okay.
So
all right. Go ahead.
So yeah, it's probably less than 8,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it was somewhere around 8,000 for the one-time cost, but they by default are breaking that over 4 years. So our cost, the regular annual cost is $2,400 a year, and with the annual cost split on top of that, it's only about $4,600, something like that, per year for 4 years. And then after that 4 years, we get a redesign on the website included, no additional cost for that. Mm-hmm. And then after that, then we're only at the $2,400 a year.
So do you have a website that we can look at a town in Massachusetts, that we can look at a revised website?
I don't know a town in Massachusetts. Revize.
we can provide you, we can send out the board links to some towns that they.
Yeah, we have
I'd like to see the website.
We have
And
a
I'd
proposal that goes into great detail from them, and it has, I think, probably a dozen links of different towns and cities from all across the U.S. I don't know about Massachusetts on there, but
So you have a proposal. Is there a deadline on that proposal?
not
For
to my
example?
knowledge.
No. Okay, so what I'd like to see is a website with revised and a website with what we would get with the Civic Plus upgrade.
Well, let me tell you about the Civic Plus upgrade, because Civic Plus upgrade is more expensive. The best that they could do to move to Civic Plus Central was a $15,000 initial fee. And then what did they say was the
About $4,600 a year for the regular annual.
and that to us really, I mean, we wanted to let you know because that was the next closest one to the revised. It really feels like a non-starter to because even if we got them to break down that 15,000 over 4 or 5 years, you're still talking about $7,000 a year. We're paying $2,000 a year right now, and that's a lot.
And
to absorb.
And we have worked them down. I think the original one time was 30 something grand,
Yeah, I
and
think
that wasn't going to work.
That was what they were.
Yeah, so Harrison, and
Way back.
don't say we, because I didn't do any of the work. Harrison worked him down to $15,000 in a one-time cost. But as much as I like the idea of going to Civic Plus Central because I've been using it for years. So I'm very familiar with how to navigate it and operate it and set up the pages and the links and everything. But that cost doesn't feel doable in our IT budget. It just feels like that's just too excessive. Whereas, maybe absorbing, a $7,000 or $8,000 fee broken down over 4 years is more doable. So this presentation is more to let the board know kind of where we were with that, and see if there was an interest in us providing you some more information about the revised proposal. Because really, we think that the Civic Central, we presented that more to let you know that this was the next closest thing, and it's really not feasible.
Right.
So whether you're interested in getting some more information about revised, or whether you feel like it's not worth it to kind of to move away from what we have.
Having worked on the upgrade of Civic Plus, I can tell you that it really would be nuts. What's their underlying language for the website? Is it Drupal?
I don't know off the top of my head. I don't think it's Drupal, potentially WordPress, but I'm not 100% on either.
I kind of want to know what kind of site it is.
I think it goes into that in the proposal. I just don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
But I can get that if it's not in the proposal.
Could we read the proposal?
Oh yeah, we'll send that.
If you're interested, we can send out all members of the board the proposal.
I'm not wedded to the Civic Plus in town, and I know the difficulties around it. And so I'm not opposed. And the pricing is great, but I want to see what we're getting for the price.
Sure.
I think it's very much more user friendly and intuitive to use.
One of the things that they did say they would be willing to do is help us recapture some of the rogue department sites that have been created. So like they would create a total refresh of the fire department site that would look like the town site. And then as long as the fire department was okay, anybody who went to that link would now it becomes the fire department page on our website. And they do it with the police department, they do it with the water department, they do it with they said they even looked at the library, and they could do it with the library, where they would.
Well, I think that would be a positive.
And so instead of having these like
separate, yeah.
And they said that they would be willing to create them and create them so they looked like a town website. So instead of, because if you click on the fire department page,
oh yeah,
it doesn't look anything like the Town of Townsend website. It looks like you clicked on spam, quite frankly, and you got to the wrong spot. But even the police department website, which is a perfectly nice website, doesn't maintain symmetry with the town's website. It looks like you've gone to a completely different town's police department page.
I think
And the
that
library page too.
And that uniformity is, I think, valuable in trying to have a singular brand. Like, this is what the town website looks like, so you know you're in the right place.
The library may be different because, you know, we may be sending them with their own system and locking them in the little gate. But
Okay, I think it's worth looking at. I do. I think it's worth looking.
okay, then that's all we wanted, and we'll send you out the proposal, and maybe we can schedule a time to talk about it further once you've had a chance to take a look at it, and maybe look at some of the site.
I'd also like you to keep an eye for some of the online things that we're looking at as well, like the building department and all of that. I want to make sure that that's compatible.
Absolutely, we can
problems with that.
What we can do is we can get the name of the software from Eric, and we can just, I'm sure if we fire it off to the revised guy, they'll know if it's something that's compatible with them.
I'd really like to see us expand on people making payments.
Absolutely.
Or online as opposed to coming in.
For all the departments, frankly. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, you were about to say.
And I do want to see if the ability of things with Outlook calendar.
All right. I'll get all that information together, send it over, and send that to you to bring here.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Harrison.
And that was all for my update.
And congratulations on your appointment to the elections. Thank you.
Yes.
Looking forward to it. Way to step up, buddy.
Well, I think I stepped up to you.
Yes, you did.
There you go. All right.
I'm with many, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Reports from board liaisons, general government.
I do not have anything. I was going to bring up the school committee, but we already discussed that.
I have a couple. Number one, I just want to inform the board the Main Street well has come up. They are, it's not at full capacity, but they are pumping in fresh water, which is a very, very good thing. We coordinated with the fire and the police department to get out notices. And Madam Chair helped us get the signs put up in regards to notifying the public about their watering, public watering, and all of that kind of stuff. There has been a very good response from our community, and I want to thank everybody for. It was a reduction in usage, which allowed more fresh water to go into the system. And from what I'm being told by the water and superintendent and the commissioners is that it's allowing this discoloration to come through. The discoloration is not harmful. It's a higher level of manganese that has been left over within the pipes, but it's working itself through, and I'm really happy to report that it's coming through with good reports as far as their testings are concerned. So they're going to continue with that. And I want to thank the water department for getting that well up and running on Main Street. You know, they have been behind the times doing it, but I'm glad they did. I've also been working really hard with the planning board, just basically helping them through the master plan has been voted on. There's a couple other things that I've been assisting in getting that forwarded. So once that comes out, I've asked for the board to get copies of what's being sent to the state once that gets all taken care of. Recreation department, they have had a lot of kids this year. It's when you talk to the director, she's like talking a mile a minute because of all the things that are going on there. But I want to thank them for doing a bang up job. They're going to be wrapping up their season very shortly, but they've done a great job. There was an exorbitant amount of kids, and you know, it's a very successful season for them. And that's all I got.
Okay. Public safety, constable policy. Eric and Chief Sartell and I met, and we're going to put together a constable policy. So we're just kind of briefly putting on hold constable appointment. We have 3 that we could consider.
Right.
So, but to put the policy in place first. So I guess there's that. This is not public safety, but affordable housing trust. We've been looking at those 6 properties, trying to work out a plan. We need a business plan. So I sent a question today after a meeting yesterday for how do we access the money. We're working on job descriptions. Can we amend the agreement so that we have town employees that are working on housing and for the housing trust. And then we're also looking at, what's the other thing? Well, we've looked at the South Railroad plan that's already in place. So we just need a plan going forward, where we're going to go, where and how we're going to go. So we're working on that.
Great.
Open space and recreation plan. We had a meeting last night. And the survey results again, they're all interesting. And they'll be one of the appendices in the document. And Jeff has worked on the first 4 chapters, and then we'll be looking at goals, etc. And probably a community.
Nice.
That's it. That's all I have.
Well, I tell you what, I was down on the rail trail last weekend. There's a lot of foot traffic down there. It's really nice. It's nice to see. It's really nice to see.
I'm looking for the party.
I was telling Veronica that every day that I have worked here and I've come in, I've seen someone on that rail trail in the morning on the way. Mm-hmm. Every day, without fail, there's someone out there. Yep. Usually multiple, but at least one person out there walking.
So maybe I'm not done talking. Shared streets and spaces. We have another meeting tomorrow. We kind of abandoned the sidewalk for the moment. We have to find another way to look at it because it could be the culvert at Minnie's Fork is a bigger deal than what we thought.
Oh.
So we do have access to our foundation support. So we're kind of shifting with the remaining shared streets and spaces funds to do bike trails from Timberland Park down to the travel box. Mm-hmm. So we'll see where that goes.
And the Minnie's Brook culvert issue is with District 3, MassDOT. So I've reached out to them and I've had some conversations with one of their superintendents to let them know that that's an issue.
Yeah, it might be a structural thing that is all the way across the street, not just right there. And we learned that you cannot end the sidewalk, just end it. Yeah. You know, which we were going to do before Minnie's Book. Yeah.
For ADA reasons. You can't just dump someone.
Get somebody stuck there.
Yeah, because you dump them in the store to go. No, great.
So we can't do that. So anyway, we're meeting with that. And we have Margaret Kent and her associate, Juliet, whose last name I can't think of, is going to work with us. And that's funded through MassDOT, through the shared streets grant. So it's still available to us, which is wonderful. So that's it. Announcements and communications. If you would like to go over that, we should talk about drought level 3. Somewhat, that announcement.
Well, we've got different we have different answers from the water department than from the state.
But you're saying that the water department deals only with the town water tables. What about people like me who have do I have to follow the state rules for drought level 3 as opposed to the permit for the town's permit? And do you see what I'm saying?
I understand. That's a question I don't know the answer to.
We all drink from the same aquifer. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're a water taker or not.
Yeah, it does. They're different. You're in different stratas of
maybe
water.
And maybe not. Depends on the depth of your well. My well is really deep, so it's probably different. The town wells are shallow.
Right.
But there are people who do have to shower. everybody doesn't have a 400-foot well. So,
So unfortunately, I think Todd was out of town.
yeah.
And so I haven't touched base with, I haven't had a chance to talk to him, to try to talk. I reached out. You and I talked briefly last week, and I sent something to Todd, and he was out of town. And so I got bounced back. So it was like, I'm away, and I'm, so I haven't had a chance to talk to him yet this week. So I will try to touch base.
That's something that, because we aren't just all water takers in town.
Sure. And so I do think I think it's a very important question. And I do think his expertise is something I definitely want to kind of rely on.
So we'll just keep that sign exactly after
Just
this.
as this.
All right. So, what else is in here for the announcement from Homeowner's Guide to Wetlands? That was put up on the website, correct, for conservation, so if people could look at that. What do people think? What else is there?
The Healing Community Study through the National Institute of Health. We're completely wrapped up now. When we have the final report, I'll submit that to the board. We're still hammering out the details.
I don't know. Is there anything on there, Teresa, that you think?
No, I don't see.
That's it. Our next meeting is August 23rd at 6 p.m. And is there a motion to review and sign payroll and bills payable warrants out of the session?
I'll make a motion that we review and sign payroll and bill payable warrants out of session.
Second that.
All those in favor, Teresa.
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Just Sexton Duranian, yes.
And Veronica Talia. And so that is it. We do have an executive session. Do we need the executive session?
I have not heard anything from Adam.
Okay, then
So
maybe we don't.
I think we can probably.
I can fill you in on what happens.
We should do that in executive session.
If we're going to do that, we should do that in executive session.
That's what I had recommended.
So we should have the motion to do.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to General Law 30 Alpha S 21A3 to discuss strategy with respect to litigation. If an open meeting may have detrimental effects on the litigation position of the public body and the chair so declares. It's regarding Hunting Land Farms, and I'll make a motion that we adjourn after
From executive
session.
And I'll second.
All those in favor?
Teresa A. Marsh, yes.
Just Sexton Duranian, yes.
I'm going to be right back.